that one. There you go. All right. So tonight's demo is Neal Brand. He's going to be doing kitchen spoons, and it's quite different than anybody else has ever done it. So we're going to let Neal do his stuff. Neal?
Thank you. Okay, are you ready over here?
What the heck?
Okay, I'm gonna let them worry about the cameras. So what you said isn't quite true. I thought it was until last week. I sell stuff at the Denton Community Market.
Jim, is it frozen for you too?
One of the things I sell is spoons.
Yep.
So I sell these things. And I had them out on display, and this guy came around and said,
okay.
I heard him say to his friend that was with him, he says, hey, here's somebody that makes spoons like I do. And so I got interested in that because I'd never seen anybody make spoons like this before. So I asked him a little bit about what he was talking about. And he does it very similar to this, but not a little bit different. And I'll talk about how he does it different as I go. He described what he did, but didn't have the jigs and stuff there. So I wasn't quite sure exactly how he did it. He was visiting from, forget if it was Nebraska or Kansas, and he was visiting his daughter. So he ran over to his daughter's house and brought back 3 spoons and showed me what he'd made. And they were very similar to this, but they were deeper here. Yeah, you can see that. They were deeper here. So anyway, I want to talk about how to make these. A lot of people make spoons by hollowing by having the spoon rotate around here like this. So it's like a propeller going, and I never liked that because I knew if I do that, I'd get my finger in there and I'd regret it. So I never made one like that, but I kept thinking, well, there should be some way to do it where you hollow it from the end instead of with it flying around like that. So I did some calculations and determined that what I wanted, well, I guess to start with, I decided I wanted to use 1-inch boards because it's easy to get at 1-inch boards, and it'd be a good way to start. I figured that would be enough scoop for a spoon. So I did some calculations and determined that if I had these boards somewhere around 1 3/4, 2 inches apart, then if you take a circle, so if I had them like this, and you took the center and drew a circle from this point around, it would just be tangent down here and come to this point. But that's just what I want, because when I'm doing the outside of the spoon, I want to be able to use the wood clear from edge to edge. Now, I should have said this is a 3-inch board. My plan was to make approximately 3-inch wide, 2.5 inch or something like that. So, so I did the calculation and realized I wanted 1 3/4 inch. So I thought, how can I mount these 1 3/4 inches apart so that it's safe to hollow from the end? Well, I never had seen these before, but I saw this at Woodcraft. And this is, let's go over on top. This is a, let's do the top. Okay, we'll do whatever. There we go. So this is 8 inches, and it's a buffing extender. So if you want to buy one of these, you can get them at Woodcraft or a number of other places. They have them here. They're only 4 inches long. You could buy 2 of them and just screw them together, I think. That's what it looks like. I just saw them there tonight. So when I bought this one, I just saw it, and it had 1-inch threads, so I had to put an adapter on the end. But they sell them 1 1/4. I don't know why I didn't look a little more and get the 1 1/4, but I didn't. Anyway, so I have an adapter on the end, but you can get the 1 1/4 ones. Of course, now you're not going to be able to mount 2 pieces of wood parallel on a round cylinder like this. So that's when I made this. So this is a block of wood. It's 6 inches long. It's 1 3/4 inches, same as this diameter, wide, maybe just a tad wider, and 3 inches this way. So what I did is I drilled a hole that would just fit this so I can slide it on. The end of this has threads in it. So I hope I didn't lose my bolt. There it is. So you could put a bolt in here to hold something down. So when I drilled the hole out for this piece, for the extender, I didn't go all the way through. I just went part way through. So I can push it on here. And I drilled another hole here for the bolt to fit in, and I screw it on. And that's how I hold them 1 3/4 inches apart. I glued sandpaper on the surface here. That way, when I put my wood on here, it's less likely to slip. It gives it more friction. Let me go ahead and tighten this down. Okay. And then what I do is I start with blanks that are 12 inches long, 3 inches wide, 1-inch boards. I use hard maple. I notice there's some hard maple for sale here. You can get it here or wherever your favorite place is to buy wood. And probably it's here because you want to keep supporting this place. So anyway, get it wherever you get hardwood. This one has a knot here, but I don't think that's going to be a problem because the handle will come through here. So I'm not going to worry about that knot. So all I do is I put, and I mark it 4 inches from the end. So I put this one in here, line it up with the mark. And then, let's see, I guess I'll flip it over. And then I'll put this one in and line up the edge here with the mark. Looks pretty good. Try to get them on as square as I can. Tighten this down. This piece, I said this is the boards are 3 inches wide. That's not quite right. They're just under 3 inches. I try to make them 2 7/8 or just slightly under, so that I don't have problems pushing them in. I checked them all before I came to make sure they went in. Yeah, but yeah. Okay, now I'm using U-bolts. The U-bolts I use are 3 inches wide and they're 5 inches long. I can only find 6 inches, 6-inch U-bolts, so I just had to cut them off an inch so I don't have a lot of metal flying out here that's going to catch my finger or something. So, what's that? I got them online, and I can't think. It's something like the Bolt Warehouse or something like that. If you just Google U-bolts, you'll find it. Bolts Depot, that's where it was. Yeah. And I didn't find the 5-inch, but I did find 6-inch. Okay, so I need to get this nice and tight, make sure that I've got these at the line. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it pretty close. All right, and then I'll tighten them. Oh, the bolt that goes in the jig here is I think it's a 3/8 inch, if I remember right. I believe it's 3/8 inch. Yeah, 16. Yes, I will try to remember to do that, but I probably will forget. So just remind me. So the question was, what's the size of the bolt? And it's 3/8 inch, 16 threads per inch, standard size. Okay, so these don't have to be real tight, but they need to be snug enough that you're comfortable, that it's not going to come flying off. That's good. Okay, now what I'm going to do is hollow. Oh, and I'm going to have to take the tailstock off. Oh, there's a bolt here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hollow. But I don't want my tool to get over here, right? Because that's going to be bad news. It happened to me once, and after that, I found a way to avoid it. So I'll show you here in a second. I made a little safety shield. So all this is just a piece of plastic that's 3 inches by 3 inches, and the hole here is 1 1 3/4 inches. I did a 3D printer, use a 3D printer to make it, but you can make it out of wood easily enough. It's no big deal. So what I'm going to do is attach it here at the end. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it, center it as good as I can. If it's not completely centered, it's not such a bad thing. The thing that's nice about the 3D printing of this is that now that I've marked these, I can turn it any way I want, and it's still going to fit right. If I did it by hand, this wouldn't be quite perfect, so you'd have to put it on the same place you marked it. Okay, so now I'm going to drill a hole and put and screw this in. And I think it's worth doing this because it's a lot safer. So I'm just gonna put some screws in it. Oh, it might help if I drill the hole first. Okay. Okay, now I'll screw the plate on. Now, I was telling you about the guy that I met last Saturday. He mounts his differently. When he mounts them kind of at an angle like this. Yeah, kind of like that somehow. And I don't know exactly how he does it. He explained it to me, but I didn't quite catch how he did it. But I think he had a solid block here with a hole in it, and he would stick it through the hole and then wedge it in to hold it tight. And then he'd have a little bit of area here to hollow, but he said it was only like this big a hole. So I wouldn't want to do it that way because it's a lot easier to hollow through a bigger hole. And the other thing is he had no safety shield on it because he couldn't put the safety shield on the way that he had that. So I claim that my way is superior, but he might argue that. I don't know. Okay. So this is just take me a second here to get these in. Well, maybe a minute or two. There we go. And we shouldn't have any trouble with this because this is a Harbor Freight tool here. There. Okay, so that makes it much safer, I think. The one time that I didn't, or when I first started doing this, I didn't use that. And the one time I had a problem with it, got it here, and I was using something other than U-bolts, and I had pieces flying all over the shop. So use the safety shield if you're going to do this. It's worth spending the time to make the shield. No, you're on your own. You didn't bring your shields. Question is, do you have shields for people in the front row? Let's see. Let's see how that looks. That's a little bit high. Bring it down a little bit. That should be pretty close. Okay, I'm using a Trent Bosch hollower, and you can use whatever you're used to hollowing with. So I like this one, so that's what I use. Okay, so I'm going to start hollowing. Oh, maybe before I do, I don't always do this, but I think for a demo it's good. I'm going to put a mark here to show kind of where I want to be. So the spoon's going to start about there and end about here. That's where the scoop I want. That's where I want the scoop to be. I'll mark this one about the same place. You saw I measured it very carefully.
That's the length.
Yeah, that's the length of this. Yeah, and while I'm thinking about it, why don't I pass these around? You can see what they look like. Those are just some that I made the last few days. Okay, so I'm going to start hollowing. So I can figure out how this works. First, I can't figure it out. Okay. Yeah, that would help if it's forward. This is the speed adjustment. Okay. I usually like to go about 1500 when I'm doing this. but go whatever speed you feel safe with. Okay, and if you notice, you probably can't see that, but I don't think that's a very good view there, Ken. Okay, well, as long as I'm not seeing double, I guess it's okay. All right, so I'm going to start hollowing this. It might be better to do it from the top because you can actually see down in. Yeah, can you see it there? Okay, so I'm just going to start hollowing. All right, I'm going to stop and show you what it looks like. Okay, as you can maybe see, there you go. I haven't gotten very far yet. And I knew I didn't get very far, and the reason is because I can see where I'm cutting, and I can tell where I am. It may be difficult for you to see through the camera, but I can see that. Trent Bosch's hollowing tool. Trent Bosch. The tool is Trent Bosch's hollowing tool. It's got a high-speed steel tip. Yeah, there you can resharpen. But you know, if you have a tool you like to hollow with, it'll probably work just fine. Okay. Now you can make this whatever shape you want, or pretty much whatever shape you want. I try to make it look pretty much like a standard spoon, but you could make it more round or more narrow, however you want to do it. I think that's pretty close. Let's have a look. Yeah, I want to go more than that. If you look at this one, this side, I'm about as deep as I want to go there because I can feel that I'm pretty close to the bottom. So I want to pretty much stop there. And you can see I'm close to the edge here too. So that's about as far as I want to go. This one's not quite as deep. Somehow it's not centered perfectly. My jig's not centered perfectly, but this is more off than what it usually is. What I'm going to do is cut some more, but not cut out the bottom, cut along the ends so I can extend it a little bit. So I'm going to and I want to get some more off on this end. Now let's see what it looks like now. It helps to do that first. Okay, that's about what I want. I don't know, can you see that shape? It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but it is about the shape that I want. So I'm going to stop there with this tool, and it tends to get some tear out because you're just scraping it. So I'm going to scrape it with a negative rake scraper. This is one of Todd's tools. Originally, this cutter wasn't negative rake, but I went ahead and just sharpened it for negative rake because you can get a little better surface using that. So I'm just going to take off just a little bit with this. I'm just trying to smooth it out, get rid of some of the tool marks and some of the tear out. Because sanding this is not much fun. And so I want to sand as little as possible. And I'll talk later about how I sand that. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, at this point, I've got the hollowing done. So next thing I want to do is turn this part. And I want something that looks like this, basically. Okay, so I have it hollowed, and I want to get the back turned. So I'm going to take off the safety shield. I'm sorry, what was the question? Question is, can you do 4 at a time? And the answer is, yeah, but you have to change the dimensions I'm using. If I use 4, I'd have to put one up like this. I need someone to do the in camera. Okay, so the problem is, these are 1 3/4 inches. This is 3 inches. So if these were 3 inches apart, I could. And that was my original plan, was to put 4 around it. But after I did the calculations, I realized I couldn't. 2 would be the most I could do. You could probably do 3 if you put them at angles, but it'd be too hard to make the jig. So I'm just doing 2. Okay. Yeah, I need to take these off. What do you sell your French bar? Cash. I sell them for 15 each, 2 for 25. And a lot of people think that's too much, but it's, yeah, it's hard to compete with Walmart. But actually, I do sell a number of them, so it's okay. And a lot of people like it, like the fact that it's a spoon made locally by a woodturner. So I do sell a number of them. Let me take this off for a minute. It's kind of warm in here. Okay, so next I want to do this. So what I'm going to do is use a roughing gouge. I'm using this one. It's Thompson roughing gouge. It's a Mark Sinclair version. You see the one thing that's really nice about it is, let's see if I can figure out. Here it is. Let's see if I can zoom in on it a little bit. If you look at the end, you'll see this edge along here. It's backwards when it seems should be. Is straight. And so that means when I'm using it, if I cut along that edge, it's almost like using a skew. So this is really a nice roughing gouge, but Thompson doesn't make them anymore. I've been told, but he still has some. If you want to get one, you can order from him. Okay, so I need to get this in place. It's up a little bit, I think. Out there. Now you have to be careful because this is flying around and we're working up close to this. So it's kind of like working close to the chuck. So you have to just be kind of careful. It's kind of like you're trading the propeller for this metal flying near you. Speakers aren't working. It's supposed to be. I can project much louder than that. It's on, yeah. There's no light on though. That's what worries me. Shouldn't there be a light on?
Hold on. It's all the way over in the other position.
Not all day. It's pretty good, the cold cuts.
Are they picking it up on Zoom?
Yes, we can hear you on Zoom.
Can I take it off? All right, so
I don't
will
think they're
project
hearing us,
more.
Steve.
So what I'm going to do is go ahead and turn this. What I'm going to do is
Yeah, I
try to
don't
get it
think so.
within. It's a good idea. I don't always do this, but when I do demos, I like to do it. And that is, I put a mark around the edge. That way, it's easier to see when I go too far. I'm going to do on both of them so it'll show up better. The reason for doing this, of course, is to make it easier to see. The reason not to do it is because later I'm going to have to sand it off, and that's a pain in the neck. But it's probably worth it. Okay. Need to put this back on. And here we go. What was that? Oh, it's in the wood. I think this bulb's burned a little bit. I think that's finally done. I had them, you know, why one's deeper than the other one. But that's okay. It didn't do any damage. All right. There we go.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Oh. Testing.
Okay, what I'm going to do is start at this end further from the headstock because it's the least supported. And then I'll take it off around here after I get this part over here done. So I'm doing the last half or 3/4 maybe of the hollow part. I can see that black line very nicely. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I can see it pretty easily. Can you hear me with this thing on? Oh, sure. Yeah. I forgot to do that. So, yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's it. I can even go in a little bit closer, I think. Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I'll go ahead then. I'll try to speak more loudly while I'm turning so that you can hear me. Or better yet, I may not talk at all while I'm turning. Okay, let me stop for a minute. So I'm going to go a little bit further. What I want is for this edge to be just about maybe 1/4 of an inch from the black line. And so that's kind of what I'm shooting for. I'm pretty close there, but I want to go a little more. And then I also need the end.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's a slash here, and it's going to be so I have to make sure that I get that down to where that fit.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Bang. I'm getting pretty close to that black line, so I'm about where I want to be now. Yeah, that's about where I want to be. So I'm not going to mess with this end anymore. This will fit nicely into this slot. So that's why I'm going to have to hold it with in a little bit after I take it off of this jig. So now I have to get everything from this end here up, but not go beyond that end. So I'm going to use a spindle gouge to get in a little closer.
I can't get it to these guys.
Didn't mean to do that. Okay, are you able to pretty much see the shape? Let me tell you what I'm looking at. I've got this end here, this black line end. I don't want to go beyond that very much. I'm going a little bit. And the reason is because I want a nice transition from here to here. If I go in too far, I'm going to have a let's see, let me do it here. I'll have a little indentation there. If I don't go far enough, I'll have a ridge on here that has to be sanded off or something. So I want to go a little bit more than this, but not too much more. The idea is this thickness should be about, this thickness here, right there, should be about the size of a spoon, approximately. So I think I'm going to go just a little bit more, but not much more. Okay, that's where I want to be. I'm stopping there. Yeah. I haven't done that. It's probably not a bad idea, but if they're further apart, you get a better hold. Just from, you have more leverage that way. So I keep it there. And it makes you a little nervous, but if you're just careful and just cut in here, it's not a real problem. But you could move this back further. Wouldn't be a problem. Okay, I'm done with this jig now. So I'm going to take these guys off. I don't know why. You can just move them out further? I could do that. But I wouldn't move them after I started cutting though. I could move them out further to start with. But once you start cutting, you don't want to move them or else you're going to get them misaligned and then you could have problems then. That was my expensive Harbor Freight one too.
It's on. See that line? It's fine.
I think so. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for. Next step then is to use the bandsaw or whatever saw you want and cut it out. So I make it look like that. So here's what I do.
Each one has its own setting.
I mark it
It worked.
1 inch on either side,
Echo.
and let's actually go like this. 1 inch on either side, and cut here, cut there, and cut along there. And what you wind up with is something like, it looks like that then, basically. So you have these extra boards, and these are nice. Don't throw them away. The reason is, it's because you can do all sorts of good things with them. One thing I did is made a bunch of these. I sell this at the community market for $3. See, $3. There. And I did sell it for a dog, you know, stick, where you can use that or chew it or whatever. And then somebody said, hey, is this a tortilla rolling pin? I said, yes. And I sold several like that. Now I tell everybody, you can use it. You can use it for either one. I don't recommend both, but you can use it for either one. And I've sold several of these. So actually, so that's one thing you can do with it. Another thing you can do with it is make other little things, such as a mouse. Yeah, I can do it this way if you want to do it there. Okay, all right. Or you could make a pig, or you could drop things on the floor. Here's a pig, about like the mouse, but the tail's different. Or you have some walnut to go with it. You can make a penguin. And I sell these too, and usually I think I sell enough of just these little guys like this to pay for the boards. So the spoons themselves, the material for the spoons are basically free, because that was the way I look at it, because these fun things to make, these little animals I can sell and pay for the board. In fact, more than pay for the board. So anyway, that's just kind of a side thing that's kind of nice. All right, so now I have one of these. So now I have to mount this and make the handle and make the transition. Yes. So I need to make kind of a transition between the screw part and the handle part, turn the handle. And it's tricky because you have to make the transition here. So I'm going to do it in two steps. Oh, the other thing too is I like the thickness of this. Charlie, what do you think of the thickness? Is that about right? Just feeling, yeah, maybe a quarter of an inch or so. But it's more than that around here. And the reason is because when you're measuring this way, you're measuring perpendicular to the surface. Here it's cut at an angle, and so this makes it look thick. So what I'm going to do is turn it and turn this closer when I'm not so far away from the center. I'll be closer to the center. So
have you tried cutting it like this before you turn your spoon?
no. The reason I don't is because I want to get as much surface area on this as possible. You could do that, but I don't see the reason, because if you cut it afterwards, you still save the same amount of material. So you might as well just leave it all together when you turn it. And then, so the question was, could you cut it first before you put it on the lathe?
I just wondered if it was less stable on the hollowing, or
I think it would make more, it'd be more stable doing it the way I'm doing it. That's my thought. Yeah, that's my thinking. Okay, so the next jig. So I need something to still turn it off center, but not as much off center as this does. So that's the next thing. I'll pass these around. This is what I'm going to use. Do you want to? Here's a couple of them. They screw onto the live center. The ones I'm passing around now have 1-inch threads on it, 1-inch 8 threads, and it's because on my live center I put an adapter for 1-inch 8, so I can turn bowls around and put them on there to center them. And so I made some like that where they fit the live center, but that's what I have here. So I guess if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to put the tailstock back on. Okay. So there's some angel ornaments up there. Oh, there we go. Where are you? Okay. It's 3D printed with the threads. Yeah. Yeah, when you do that, you have to use finer I normally use 1.5 or 0.15 millimeters. I normally use 0.2 millimeters. I did that with 0.15. You get better threads then. Okay, so there it is. So what I'm going to do is use a spur drive on this end. And the way I want to mount it is I want to mount it so that I'm a little bit below center. So I have the
Possible to
spoon
change the
facing
camera
up.
angle?
Center's about here. I'm going to go just slightly below the center. So I'm going to go about right there. And the reason I want to go below center is I'll explain in a second. Okay, I've got two slots in here. I want to mount it in the outside slot, the one that's further from the center, and mount it so it looks like this. That is the I'm not seeing it, can't see it very well there.
The camera angle.
See what you're doing.
Let's go overhead.
Okay. we can do that.
Why am I not able to do this? There we go.
You are overhead.
Now I'm overhead, yeah. Okay, so yeah, that doesn't help either. So if you look at this,
What's there?
It's the overhead.
yeah, I'd like to have it this way, but I don't think we can do that. Okay, yeah, there we go. You can see that there's two slots here. You probably can't see it, but there's one near the center and one on the outside. I put it on the outside one, and I have it so that the scoop is facing toward the center. Okay? Now, what I want to do is work on this transition area. Mainly.
The camera angle is just on the bed on the laid bed.
So let's see if it's going to be okay. Yeah, that's all right.
I don't think they can hear us.
I think I use the spindle gouge.
I can't hear us.
And
Joel, they can't hear us in the room. Todd's got to call Don and let him know.
okay, first I'm going to just clean up a little bit here on the front, on the scoop part. Try to get a little bit closer to the black line. Let me show you what we're doing here. Okay, notice that all I'm doing is cutting up along here. You see where I'm cutting there? So right here I'm going to have a ridge. Over here and over here I'm going to have a ridge. Oh, I forgot one important thing too. Okay, I have to make sure it's centered. I didn't do that. So let me make sure it's centered. It's simple to do. Up here's some area I haven't cut yet. So I'm going to put my finger here. And make it so it just barely touches. Now it should just barely touch on the other side. It's not touching. So I'm not centered, so I need to move it a little bit this way. Let's see about that now. There we go. Yeah, that's good. Okay, you have to do that or else you start what I'm doing, or you do what I'm starting to do here. I'm cutting off more on one side than the other side, but now I should cut it evenly. Okay, so let's do this again. Okay, I'm going to use a roughing gouge now, and I'm going to take some of this material right in this area off. So I'll just take little bites here. Let's see what that looks like now.
Todd, are you there?
Okay,
They
so
can't
this
hear
is
us.
a little thinner up here. And that's okay. When that sands out, that'll look pretty good, I think. Here, I need to get this material out. I can cut more off right up in here. And doing that will get me closer to where I want to be on this side as well. So what I'm going to work on is this area right in here. What's that? Okay, yeah. Okay. So what I'm looking at is this black line that I drew, and I want to make sure I never cross that line. You cross that line, and the spoon's going to look strange. Okay, let's see where we are. Okay, now this is more like what I want it to look like. Notice I've got kind of a nice curve there. So I'm going to stop there. I still have to get some off here. So I will wait and do that on the next setting. So next I'm going to move it in to the center one. This center one is not exactly centered. The center one, there's a slot there. One side of the slot is right on center, and the other one's just off by whatever it is, 1/8 of an inch or whatever the width of that slot is. And again, first thing I want to do is make sure that I have it centered. Now, the reason that I have it off center is because with this one, I'm going to turn the handle. Okay, and I have to make sure that the axis of the lathe is going through here. It can't pop out or something. So that means I want this inside this scoop. Okay, and that's why I put this a little bit lower too. That way, if I draw a line between here, it's more likely to hit wood all the way. Can you hear me now? Okay, so that's why I did that.
Yeah, can you have,
okay.
stop for a second?
So now I've got this on the center groove, and I'm ready to.
Hey, Neal, can you pause for about 10 seconds? We got to do a little audio test here. Okay, he's pausing for a second. Who do you want talking, me or him? Hello, Todd? You still there, Todd? Talk to Todd.
Todd, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, well, he's giving you a test now. You can hear him? Okay. Okay. We're gonna give you this mic. Yours is getting scratchy or something. Hang on.
Okay.
Should have, oh, you can leave that one there. Let's just turn that one.
No,
Well, I can call it. I can put this
it's not
on.
working. There's no point in learning.
It just gave me something to click this on.
Okay.
Okay, and we need that one. That one button, it's still turned on. Give him a little audio test there.
Okay, can you hear me, Todd?
He can hear you.
Okay, good. Now that the demo is about over. Well. Let's see. Okay, so ready to get going again, Ken? Okay. All right, so I want to work on getting this transition a little better. And the reason I changed to this setting rather than before, now it's closer to center. So when I take material out here, this should come off. Okay? Well, let's see if I can do it. All right, I want to see how that's looking.
You didn't have to send it into that slot that came in automatic.
I'm sorry, what was that?
When you did it to the top slot,
I intended to do it both of them. Yeah, you have to do it on both of them. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so this is looking pretty good, actually. That's not a bad transition. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start making the handle. Okay? And I always used to think this was the easy part until I did the demo in Fort Worth a couple weeks ago. I was going along and this thing broke right up in here, so it was kind of embarrassing. So I'm going to just take little bites. I'm not going to try to hurry on it. Okay, here we go. Oh, let's go a little lower. What's that? Oh, sorry, sorry. I keep forgetting I'm responsible for the wider shot here. Okay. Wonder if we can, there we go. All right. Can you see this line right here where my finger's pointing? Yeah, that's that 4-inch line that I do. And it's okay if you leave it, but if I can get it off, that's even better. If I leave it, what'll happen to the spoon is this flat will be a little bit longer. You see there's a flat right here. And if I get this line out, it makes the flat about the way I want it. But if I don't get the flat out, it'll just be a little bit longer for that flat, and that's not a big deal. Okay, take some more off here. Okay, I've got the line out, so I'm probably going to just use that diameter for that end. I like to tape it a little bit, have it wider at this end, narrower at the scoop end. Another possibility is make it, in this area, make it a little bit wider so it fits the hand better. Just depends on what you like. But you can make it whatever shape you want. Okay, so it's getting close now, I think. Yeah. If I put my hand on it like this, I can reduce the vibrations. Just don't squeeze too tight or else you'll get a hot hand. Let's see where we are with that now. Okay. There's a little, let's see, if I put it like that, can you see that ridge? Yeah, you can see there's a ridge up here, and that's going to have to be either sanded off, or else I probably could take a little bit more off. I'm going to take a little bit more off right in there. The thing I've got to be careful about is that I don't cross this black line. So I'm just going to get a little closer to the black line in this area and make it a little bit smaller. See what happens. Let's hope for the best. Okay, where are we now? still have that, and I'm going to leave it. I'll just sand that off. It won't be any big deal to sand that off. And that's pretty much where I want to leave it. Now I'm going to make a half bead on the end here. I'm going to put a little decoration on it, and then we'll sand it. I'm going to take this down just a little bit here. Okay, that's good. Now I want to put some decoration on. So I'm going to put 3 black lines on each end of the handle. So I'll put a groove here, groove there. Let's put one back this direction. Try to get them even, but I didn't succeed. So if that happens, what I do is I widen them a little bit in the right direction. So I'll make this a little bit wider. Make this a little bit wider out. That's a little better. Now I'll make some here. You don't want to get this too close up here to the scoop because it's flat there at the end, and you might only have rings that go part way around if you're not careful. So bring it out a little ways. I think I'm safe here. There, that's good. This is just a high-speed steel rod, and it's flat on the top here, and if you look at it this way, it's sharp. So I just go in and cut little grooves with it. I have these wedges, and the reason I have wedges is because I also make spatulas, and I thought I had one here. There it is. So when I make spatulas, you've probably all seen people make spatulas before. I start with a blank where, kind of like this. So, I'm gonna get rid of this thing for a minute. So I start with a blank like this. I cut, that 1-inch piece off like before, and I cut a wedge here. Cut here and here. Okay. And then I cut a wedge here and here, and these are the wedges. So this would be, like this. And then one on the top also. So I keep these wedges because these are great for making these black marks. So I have a whole bunch of these at home because I make a lot of spatulas, more spatulas than spoons, which is good because that way I have plenty of these. Yes, let's go back to the overhead. Okay, so I just put a little bit of pressure on them. There. And let me just check, make sure everything's okay. I think I'm ready to sand. And what I'm going to do is sand the handle on the lathe, and this I'm going to sand off the lathe. And I'll show you how I do that in a minute. So, on the blue adapter thing, let me say a little bit about that. If you want to make your own, it's easy to do. You can do it out of wood. You just take a block of wood, square block of wood. You tap the end, the threads for your tailstock, and then since it's square, you can put it on the table saw or something and cut your grooves right where you want them. One groove should be, so one edge is on the center, and the other one is, an 1/8 inch off. And the other groove should be centered a 1/2 inch off the center of the piece. If that makes sense. Now, if you want to make your own, do your own 3D print, email me, and I can send you the file that goes to the printer. Or I could, what's that?
Where's the printer? Library?
It's in my upstairs in my house.
It's your printer. I know there's some other places have it.
There are places. I don't use them, so I really don't know about that. But,
Do it or something like that. Do they have printers for you?
yeah, I don't know.
Dallas Makerspace has them.
Okay.
The library. Some of the libraries have them. And are you just sending out
the good file or whatever it's called, the GODE file. Or I can send you one that I made on the Fusion 360. So then you can slice it yourself if you want. And these I actually fill them 100%. So that's why they're kind of a little bit heavy. The first ones I made, I only filled them like 20% or something, and they kind of broke before too long. So then I did 40%, and it still wore out, and I thought I was going to do 100%. It seems to work pretty well 100%. But you use a fair amount of plastic that way. Okay, so I want to sand. So I'm not going to sand it much tonight, but I want to just show you what I do. I first sand the handle only. Starting with 180. And I can still see that line a little bit up here, that 4-inch line. But as I sand like this, I'm kind of smoothing it out, and it's kind of disappearing. So even though the flat kind of goes up to where the line was, it's still, you can't tell because it's still rounded there. Okay, so just go through the grits. I go up to 600 usually. And then the fun part is sanding. Boy. Oh, no. Yeah, maybe it is. Doesn't want to go either way. Idea. Does it go down? No, it goes neither way, no matter which way I push it. There we go. Okay, so I don't think I need this now. Go ahead and take this off. Okay, so what I want to do. So what I want to do is get this end right. So that needs to be touched up. And then all this here has to be smoothed out. On the back, I need to smooth this out a little bit, get rid of this ridge. So those are the goals. And I have to sand the inside of this.
So the question on that line, when you're at home doing this for yourself, do you use a Sharpie or do you use a pencil?
For this line here,
Yes.
I use a Sharpie.
Okay.
Yeah. And I usually do use the line, but I always regret it because you have to sand it out later.
Yeah.
Okay, so I use a, okay, so where is the, oh, over here. Okay. So when I'm at home, I do the first sanding with a belt sander, but I don't have that here, so I'll just use this. This is just a disc that has Velcro on that I got on Amazon somewhere. And this is a piece of wood that I drilled out, tapped. I'll show you here. I stuck a bolt in it, and that seems to work pretty well.
Full production mode making these spoons. How long does it take you to do one?
Well, I don't do one. I do like 6 or 12.
So you do stage a bunch?
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, so that way I don't have to,
do the whole
that way I don't have to switch around.
Right.
I have it, I first use that first jig, and I do that for maybe half dozen or a dozen. And then I switch to the blue thing and then do the first step on all of them, then I do the second step. Yeah. So how, still doesn't answer your question, how long does it take? I'm guessing as it takes between, if you don't count sanding, it takes probably 20 minutes. If you count sanding, it probably takes me 40 minutes because sanding's a pain in the neck. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do next is sand a little bit. Yeah, 40 times 6. Yeah, for the whole batch. Yeah. And let's see, where's the Okay, this is a little bit loose and I don't have a bolt to tighten it, so I just got to be a little careful there. So that's my sander. Maybe I'll move it up a little bit. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this part up here. So all I do is I just go like that. Need a little more off. All right, I'm going to leave it there. I could take a little more off, but you can see now I've got a nice curve around there. Now I've got this ridge here. I can take it off on this part, or I can wait till the next step, or maybe a combination. The reason I don't like this is because you can catch an edge here, and I don't want to do that because I've already sanded this. Normally, I would have that sanded down to 600 grit at this point. Okay, I just want to smooth it out a little bit. I'm going to use the next thing to get this ridge. Also, if you look at this edge here, I want that to be sharper, so I will take care of that with this setup. So I'll just go like this. Not there yet. No, it took, first few were pretty ugly, but after a few, then I kind of have it down. Yeah. Although I keep refining it, and I'll describe how in a minute. Okay, well, get the idea here. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I want to get this so it's a nice curve here, and this is fairly sharp. Eventually, I'll sand along this edge and make that rounded. Okay, so, oh yeah, and I need to sand this off. I forgot, usually I part this off and make the bead a little bit further so I don't have so much to do. But then what I do is I just sand it. And usually by now I have it off because I don't have as much on there. If I remembered to part it off instead of, and I'll stop there. So then I have to do a little hand sanding to get this in. Okay, so this end's a hard end. So one thing that works nice, how much time do I have? So, yeah, 20 minutes has been, okay. Okay, so here's something that I bought for this purpose. Yeah, overhead. There, now I can read it. Anyway, it has two things. It has this dome sander, which is handy, but right now I want to use this one. This is pneumatic, so you can pump it up. It needs to be pumped a little bit. And I've got some sandpaper on there. So what I do is I mount this on the lathe, and I'll just use Jacobs and Chuck. Let me just show you roughly what I do here. I look for things like this ridge here, this ridge around here, and I just try to smooth those out. This area here, I can probably smooth out a little bit. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm not going to do it more than that, but I still have some here that I'd work on a little bit more, just to get it nice and smooth over here, and just kind of go over and get some of these out. But you get the idea. That's what I would normally do. Spend a few minutes doing that. Okay, now the next step is once the rest of this is all sanded, I have to sand this inside, and I've done it a couple of ways, well, several ways. The worst way I've done it was do it by hand. And it's just no fun sanding a concave surface by hand. So I wanted to figure out a way to do that better. So that's why I actually got this kit with the dome sander. And basically what you do is you buy these sandpaper thingies. They go over the top, you pump it up. Now it works pretty well. I have no complaints about it. Well, I do have complaints about it, which I'll tell you now. It does work well though. My complaint is that it's expensive. This piece is like, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks or something like that, which seems a little steep. These things cost about $5 each, and they don't last that long. So I don't really like to use this method. So I tried a bunch of things. One thing I tried is I made these things. This is I 3D printed. It's in 2 parts. Let me get this down a little bit so I can. So I got a sphere with a hole in it, and then I have this piece that fits down in the sphere. And you notice that I've got a hexagon insert here. So that goes, the bolt goes down in there, and that goes in there, and then I glue them together. I just use epoxy. And so what I was doing was trying to use these things on here, and they fit on nicely, and they work fine, except they come loose. You know, they're just not tight on there. If you get them too tight, you can't get them off. Sorry, can't get the wall out. And that's why this pneumatic thing is nice, because you can let the air pressure out. But the problem with it is you let the air pressure out, and you want to put the next grit of sandpaper on. Well, to let the air pressure out, this comes apart. You have to take this nut off. Everything comes apart. You have to put it back together, put it back to, you know, screw it back on, make sure you got it on straight, put your sandpaper on, and pump it up. If you forget to put the sandpaper on before you pump it up, you got to start all over again, which has happened to me more than once. So I just don't like using it. So next thing I tried is on one of these things, I got some glue and glued around here, and I got some grit, you know, sandpaper, sanding grit, and I glued that on there, 80 grit, 120, and so on. And that works, except it only works like once, and it comes off. And this, I used kind of a plastic on the top here that gives a little bit. And it gives a little bit, it chips the glue chips off, so it just didn't work well. Then I saw someone who had one of these, similar to this, and he put strips of Velcro along here. And so I thought I could do that. I had these Velcro dots, so I just put Velcro dots all over the place. And they're sticky, so you just stick them on there, and they hold pretty well. And they're not on any particular pattern. I just stick them on, try to get them as close together as I could. And then what I did is I took some 3-inch sanding pads, and I cut them. Well, first of all, I laid a quarter down on here and drew a circle around it. And then I made slots going from the outside to the circle, 4 slots equally spaced around the circle. And now what I can do is I can stick this on here. Sorry. I can stick that on there, push this one down, push this one over the top, push this one over the top of that, push this one over the top of that one. And let's see, this should go, no, it should go like that, like that. Okay, now if I did it right, when it spins, it's the right direction. If you go the wrong direction, it'll pull it up. If you go the right direction. But what I learned is, as long as you have a lathe that reverses, you can't go wrong. Okay, so I put that in here. And actually 4 inches might be better because we come down a little bit further, but 3 inches work, that's what I had, and it works, so that's what I'm using. And now all I do is I go in here. The ball there that I'm using is 1 3/4 inch. And the reason I use 1 3/4 inch is because that's the distance apart. And so I know then it should fit in there nicely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I could sand the outside that way, but even so, since there's a lot of air, it's hard to do. So I just don't even bother anymore. But I have tried that before. Inside, I don't want to try to sand it because you've got the air there, and you're just asking for trouble doing that. I tried a little bit once, but I just didn't have good luck at that. I mean, you might be able to do it, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't see a good way to do it. Okay, so that's the idea. And I usually try to sand up to about 600 grit. This is 120 I'm using now. And now, so what I do is go 600 grit inside here, outside here, and then I would just, the final step then would be to just touch up this outside. Oh yeah, one thing too, I forgot to mention, it's probably a good idea to get rid of this black line before you use this piece, because now I have to get rid of the black line and I don't want to scratch where I've already sanded. So it's probably good to get that off first. And I forgot to do that. So let's just pretend I did that first and there's no black line there. And that's the spoon. So any questions? Any questions?
Can you do a fork?
I can. I didn't bring one, but basically the way I do a fork is the same way I do a spatula, except when I use them in cut on the bandsaw, I start here and make a curve and curve a little bit on the back, turn it the same way I would, and then I mark 3 lines here where I cut. I should have, if I knew you were going to ask that. What I did then is I made basically it's a dowel that I mount on the lathe, and I wrap sandpaper around it, and I go up and down the slots with that to sand it, and it gets me a nice round end on it, and it works pretty well. So yeah, I do sell some of those, but not as many as the spatulas or the spoons.
All right, something like a salad set.
A salad bowl, a salad fork, yeah. Other questions? Yeah. I've never used his. I have a 3D printer and I have to get my money's worth out of it, so I like to make my own.
You put any finish on your spoon?
I don't put any on the spoons. I don't put any finish. I just leave them bare wood. And on the spatulas, when I started making those, I put carnauba wax on, and so I still do that because I started and I don't want to switch. But I've decided that for kitchen things, there's no reason to put a finish on. You know. Or carnauba wax or something like that, yeah. But no matter what you put on, after you stir the soup a while, it's going to be gone anyway. And who wants that stuff in your soup? Yeah, that's right. Other questions?
Is there a particular wood you like better than the other?
Yes, I use hard maple. I've tried soft maple. Well, not on spoons actually, but I've tried soft maple on spatulas, and I don't like it as well. It tends to, for example, when I'm using that first jig, I've got this ridge out here, it tends to splinter, but the hard maple tends to hang on better.
What about walnut or cherry?
I wouldn't use walnut because you don't want to use that for food probably. Cherry would be fine. I have made spatulas, haven't made spoons out of, no, I did make a spoon out of cherry and it worked fine. Haven't tried that. Bradford pear would be good. I have never tried Bradford pear, but that guy I met last week that makes spoons similar to this, he said Bradford pear works great.
Most of your fruit woods would be fine.
I think so, yeah, yeah.
Sycamore is known as a culinary wood because it doesn't ever put any flavor or taste. You use something like oak, the tannins in the oak
Oh.
get into the soup and it's bitter.
Yeah, I think maple's not bad though with that too. I think, yeah.
But the lighter woods be better than the darker woods.
Cherry might give some flavor, but I don't know. Yeah.
So sycamore's
Sycamore is completely
Oh, good.
good to know.
Yeah, sycamore wouldn't be as hard as this though. It might splinter out a little bit more. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll try it. If I get a hold of some sycamore.
Yeah, yeah. Good.
I can do that. That's fun.
Yeah, Neal does some really neat stuff. Thank you guys. Help us pick up the chairs while we do that. You have any questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
Neil, always.
Thank you.
Always do a great job.
Thank you.
You know, I did,